With Act 2 officially underway and a brand new patch to talk about, it's time to update you guys on what's going on in the Valorant meta. We've also now had a chance to see Neon in action, so we have a much better idea of where she fits. And for those of you who don't know, these tier lists are always backed by pro stats to give you guys the most accurate tier list possible. But before we get into the tier list, be sure to check out SkillCapped.com if you're serious about improving this act. We offer in-depth guides on every agent in the game created by Immortal and Radiant level players. Some of these players literally have thousands of hours on their select agents, so you're guaranteed to learn from the best. It's also all backed by our rank improvement guarantee. So if you don't improve while actively using our service, it's literally no risk. With that said, let's get into it. To kick off this list, we're going to start by talking about the Duelists, and the first big thing to talk about are the Yoru changes. It's hard to say where exactly Yoru fits now with his new rework, but what can be said is that he's definitely much stronger than he was a patch ago. Probably the most impactful change to his kit is that he's now able to use his flash while in his ultimate, along with the fact that his impaired vision has been removed. These changes alone make Dimensional Rift a genuinely scary ultimate to face off against. Combine this with the rework to his footsteps, effectively giving him an extra flash, and Yoru is looking like a real agent right now. Again, it's hard to say where exactly he fits in this act, but for now, we're going to put him in the A tier. Just keep in mind that this could change since we haven't had too much time to see him in action. The other duelist to talk about for this patch is Neon. She was released last act and saw a ton of play early on, but now that the hype for her has died down, she's been seeing a lot less play as of recently. We originally had her in our A tier on release, but it's now pretty clear that she is not nearly as strong as we originally thought. Her stun is still a very powerful tool that she has access to, but her ultimate is just not as strong as players thought it was. At first, Overdrive looked a lot like Jett's Blade Storm, where it gave Neon a free weapon and made her hard to hit while she was using it because of how fast she was. Yes, she can still be hard to hit, but the big problem with the ultimate is the time to kill. A Jett knife can one-shot an enemy if you're able to hit someone in the head, where Neon's laser beam takes a few seconds to melt an enemy from full health. So if you're in an elo where players have the aim to consistently hit her in the head, it just isn't that strong. Because of this, Neon has actually dropped all the way down to our C tier this patch. She still does have some useful utility and can still be strong in niche cases, but honestly, she needs a buff. Besides that, there aren't really any other notable changes to the tier list. Jett is still the best duelist in the game, but there are some maps where you might want to have a raise instead, like Bind, Split, and Fracture. You no longer need a Jett in every comp nowadays since Chamber can fill her job of opping from the Sentinel slot, but if your team doesn't have a Chamber, then you'll definitely still want one on the team. With that, it's now time to talk about the controllers, and oh my, were they reworked. With changes to every single controller this patch, it may be hard for players to really determine who is the best in this current meta, and only time will truly tell. But here is our predictions on how this meta will shape out in your games. Let's start with the two previously best controllers, Astra and Viper. With the Astra changes now reducing her star count and increasing the cooldown on her abilities. Along with this though, they also increase the size on her smokes, which is really actually going to help a lot on larger maps like Breeze and Icebox. This same change was made to Brimstone as well, and this very directly seems like them trying to make other controllers more viable on maps like Breeze. At the end of the day, these agents weren't terrible on Breeze, their smokes just left small gaps that would make them unplayable. If this ends up reducing the amount of gaps in their smoke, maybe we'll start seeing more Astra and Brimstone and less Viper on Breeze and Icebox. Especially when you start to consider the Viper changes, taking her down a notch. Now her post-plant won't be quite as terrifying, and her smokes will fall a lot faster when she has them both up, so it really hurts a bit of that smoke potential for her, as well as her lurk potential, since you'll have to decide which is more important. Overall though, I still don't see Viper being kicked out of the meta entirely this patch. Her smokes just cover so much. Her ultimate is still one of the best ultimates in the game, and shaving 4 seconds off her post-plant doesn't absolutely gut the agent anyway. In fact, it might actually be more annoying because now, rather than baiting their entire team, Viper players might actually fight during post-plant. To be entirely honest, the only controller we think is going to see a huge amount of difference in pick rate is going to be Brimstone. Brimstone's smokes got a massive overhaul this patch, increasing the range he can place them down from, the size, and the speed they come down. Along with this, his Stim beacon also gives his teammates movement speed, and if you're thinking what I'm thinking, this likely makes Brimstone one of the best agents for matchmaking. In most ranked games, there's not a ton of defaulting or slow play going on. Most of the time, it's just a challenge of which team can run it down the best. And with these Brimstone changes, he has the fastest on-demand smokes in the game, as well as the ability to increase the movement speed of his entire team, causing their swings to be that much more terrifying. keep your eye on Brimstone this patch, you'll probably see a huge rise in play for him. Lastly, for Omen, it's hard to say this early on, but we're feeling like Riot really missed the mark on this one. Making Omen's teleport faster is going to make him more appealing for those flashy highlight reel plays, but it doesn't really solve the big issue with Omen, which is that he really doesn't have enough utility to match the other controllers in the game. Omen may see more play this patch since the teleport changes should make him slightly more fun, but overall, his power level is going to remain more or less the same. Next up on the chopping block are the Initiators, which are feeling pretty balanced right now. Sova is still the strongest Initiator in the game, but he does have some maps where he isn't that strong, like Split and Fracture, and there are also some maps where teams are playing double Initiator, like on Haven. On those maps, it's pretty common to find either a Skye or, as of more recently, KO. So this patch, we have Sova again in the S tier, with KO and Skye both in the A tier. When you're going to pick KO over Skye, depends on a lot of factors like the map or the team's playstyle. On Ascent, KO has become much more common than Skye, with a 45% pick rate over the last month, where Skye is more popular on other maps like Bind and Haven. Skye provides more info gathering than KO with her dog, flashes, and ultimate, where KO has better utility for sight executions with his knife that can turn off enemy abilities and a very strong ultimate that makes it really hard to defend a site. These two agents both fulfill different roles while still being similar in power level. The best advice I can give you when deciding which Initiator to pick is to try them out for yourself and see which one's playstyle you like better. Just to quickly round off this section, I just wanted to mention that Breach is also a solid agent sitting comfortably in the B tier right now. He's viable in a lot of maps, but he's just not as strong as the other agents in the Initiator class, except on Fracture, where he's S tier if not OP, rocking a 96% pick rate on that map in pro play. It's now time to move on to the last role we have yet to talk about, which is the Sentinel role. Probably the most important agent to talk about right now is Chamber, and how much play he's actually seeing. He currently has a comfortable pick rate on pretty much every single map right now, and especially on Breeze, where he's being picked over 60% of the time in pro play. His kit is just so flexible with trips that have unlimited range, making him a great agent for defaulting on attack, a get out of jail free card with his teleport, and an ultimate that gives him a free operator for a round. He's so strong because he can fit multiple roles, being able to lock down a site on his own, play aggressively to try to get a pick, and he gives your team another option for an opper. Because of all this, we've actually moved Chamber up to the A tier. Besides Chamber, not much else has changed on the tier list when it comes to the Sentinels. Killjoy and Sage are still sitting in the A tier and are both great options on a lot of maps, and Cypher is right there behind them in the B tier. Overall, when it comes to Sentinels, you can pretty much play whoever you're comfortable on right now, since they're all pretty balanced, with some maps favoring a specific one, like Sage on Icebox or Chamber on Breeze. Before we go, remember, if you want to learn how to play any of the agents mentioned in this tier list, make sure you check out SkillCapped.com. We also just launched our new Academy course, where we literally walk players through everything they need to know to climb the ranks, so there's no better time to get started than now. This is your act. It's time for you to get the rank you've always wanted. So what are you waiting for? Head down into the description and visit SkillCapped.com. You can thank me later. And that's all for this patch's tier list. There were a lot of interesting changes, so hopefully this video was able to help you navigate the new patch. If there are any agents you think deserve to be in a different spot on the list, make sure you leave a comment letting us know. Finally, if you made it all the way to the end of the video, don't forget to leave a like and consider subscribing to the channel. As always, we here at SkillCapped want to give you a huge thank you for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.